All right, Patrick, I think we should just dive right in and ask this question. Is the Bank of Canada winning? It's been almost 2 years. They've started on this tirade of interest rates now. And my gosh, it's affected a lot of people. And my question is, are they winning? Is it going in the direction you think they want? And is it almost over? Let's start there.
Well, I think, you make a good point. It's a good question to investigate because when we look at what the Bank of Canada intended to do, which was slow things down, bring inflation down, by slowing things down, yeah, they've definitely slowed things down. I mean, there's lots of debate and argument about whether or not they've actually brought CPI down. We've talked about that many times, which is to say, well, CPI is only at 3.2%, but that's on top of, previous 5%. It's not like prices are coming down. It's just the price escalation has slowed down. So are they winning? I guess technically they are. The economy is definitely slowing down. We're seeing that in GDP. We're seeing that in unemployment ticking up a little bit in certain provinces. So are they winning? I'd have to say yes. And I think they think they're winning because they've been very dovish in terms of what they're talking about of interest rate increases.
What does it mean?
Isn't it funny though, Patrick? It's a bit of an oxymoron.
Ha ha, laugh, funny.
Did I just call Tiff Macklem a moron? Maybe.
It's a
Anyways,
moron.
it's a bit of an oxymoron. Patrick, we can't say that kind of stuff. We're going to get canceled on YouTube. But isn't it an oxymoron that in order for the Bank of Canada to win, they have to slow down the economy? Now, they measure their goals based on inflation, not how fast the economy grows, which is interesting, by the way, because their way of slowing down the economy is to bring down GDP, which means slowing down the economy. I find that interesting, but I'll give you some very, very kind of fascinating anecdotal evidence that I'm seeing. 2 years ago, forget inflation, but 2 years ago, you couldn't, it was crazy difficult to hire staff. It was crazy difficult to grow your business. Even though business was growing, it was hard to keep up with the pace of change for sure, from a staffing perspective, from a hiring perspective, also from a pricing perspective. All of that has really slowed down in my world, Patrick. In fact, I've hired, all of my businesses are hiring right now, and we're finding some of the most incredible talent. I haven't seen this amount of talent and this good of talent out there in many years, actually since pre-COVID. And it's awesome. I mean, I'm finding it really, really beneficial to us because it's injecting a lot of creativity and a lot of positivity and a lot of awesomeness into the various businesses I own. And that's because things have slowed down for sure. And as a result, people are open and it's making a big difference. Now, so I'll leave it there for now. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's a couple things around it. First off, we have to look at, yes, the economy is slowing, and this is the lag that got created from the fastest and highest interest rate increases in history. And now the question is this, Bank of Canada, in my world, and of course our finance minister, that I believe they screwed up in the beginning when this whole pandemic opened up and they started pumping money into the economy and bringing interest rates way down. And we saw this escalation of prices. We saw the inflation. We saw the housing market heat up. And let's make no mistake about this. The blame for that falls squarely on the Bank of Canada and our finance minister. And that I would debate that, argue that all day long. Now, having said all of that, we see the lag. They didn't account for the lag. Then all of a sudden, boom, they have to overreact on the other side, which you and I have talked about many times. At the end of the day, we see the Bank of Canada and finance minister do and make the decisions that they make. They don't allow for the lag. They overreact. And then what's happening right now? Now, they're not overreacting right now on the downside, but here's my concern. We know that the lag built into those increasing rates is always going to be, and we'll talk about that shortly, in that 18 months, 2 years range where we start to see the lag. So what's happened is the Bank of Canada has paused. We're starting to see the impact of those increased rates with GDP coming down, employment going up, to unemployment going up. To your point, all of a sudden we're seeing talent out there that wasn't out there before, which is good, all good news. But I think we're just at the very kind of the crest, and we're going to come over that crest. And I think in some cities, some provinces, several actually, we're going to start to see unemployment go up even higher. And then we're going to see economically things slow down even more. And then the Bank of Canada is going to overreact again. We're going to go through the whole cycle again. Right now, we're going through an economic reset. And I think that's where this is going.
And that's the name of the game. That's just how they do it. They always do too little too early and then too much too late, which creates these swings. You and I have talked about that too ad nauseum. But I will say, Patrick, one thing I disagree with you on. I look for ways to disagree with you. So I'm going to pick this battle today. But the one thing I disagree with you on is I don't think they did too much at the beginning of COVID because it was all very unknown. And I think what they did to pump that amount of money into the economy to keep things afloat at the beginning was the right move because we didn't know what we were dealing with. Of course, now hindsight being 2020, it's easy to judge those actions. And I'm never going to play that game because I think it's not a game anybody can win. But I do think they held their position too long. But I think they made the right moves at the beginning, but then they held it too long. And the same way that they then went on a tirade of interest rate hikes, they're going to hold that too long as well. And it's going to hurt on the other side for some people. So to me, it's not so much the action, it's how long they hold the action for that often creates the effects. And that's because of lag and effect, like you said. You're absolutely right about that.
Well, and you make a good point, but let's go back to that. You and I debate this all the time, which is, I make forecasts. I'm always ahead of it. And in my world, you like to point out that you're wrong and you say it long enough. I get all that. By the way, listen, you're right about in terms of what they did in 2020 early on. But by the end of 2020, everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, most with any kind of understanding of economics were saying, you need to quit this. You need to quit feeding it. And that was by the end of 2020. And when they went into 2021, Macklem was still looking into the camera. I think it was in 2021 when he looked into the camera and said,
we don't have to worry about raising rates for a very long time. We're not even thinking about raising rates.
And that was such an overstatement to what really came down. And people made decisions, businesses made decisions on that comment, but not only Macklem, but by our federal NDP government, Liberal NDP government. So it's all to say it was a total screw up. They made a mistake. I said back then, and I still say, Tip Macklem should have been fired.
We're calling for Tip Macklem's head. We're definitely going to get canceled. I mean, this YouTube channel is going to get shut down.
I don't care. It still pisses me off. It still pisses me off because they don't have accountability and they don't take responsibility for it. And now there's a lot of people struggling right now in this world because of those early on mistakes. That's the ripple effect. That's the lag effect. And my concern is do they have what it takes to make the decisions that they need to make and really managing what's happening? They created this and now they have to bring it under control. And the reason they're making these poor decisions, JG, is they're totally disconnected from the reality of what's happening in the world. They sit in their ivory towers and they are disconnected by from what's happening on the street. Truly, that's my view of it. And I could be full of shit, but that's how I see it.
Well, your question was, do they have what it takes to make the tough decisions going forward? Time will tell, and we're going to see. I can't wait. It's going to be a show that we all have front row seats to. So let's see.
This is our opinion piece. There, right there. Listeners, this is our opinion piece right now. If you like what you learned here, go to the description below and subscribe for our free Insiders newsletter where you can also stay up to date for our upcoming events and our courses.
If you want to see more stuff like this, click here. If you want to see the entire show, click there.